Submitted for the approval of the Midnight Society, I call this story The Tale of the Carnival of Doom. Whew. Pretend I had like sand there. Hey guys, it's Kristen, and today we are talking about one of my favorite TV genres, horror anthology. There is something about it that's just so fun and nostalgic and spooky. And you know, I'm talking about shows like Goosebumps, The Haunting Hour, Creeped Out. But today we're specifically diving into the thrills and chills and history of the legendary 90s Nickelodeon show, Are You Afraid of the Dark? Consider subscribing if you like my videos, and drop down in the comments and let me know your favorite episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark. There's some really creepy ones. Are You Afraid of the Dark aired from 1990 to 1996, then it got revived from 1999 to 2000, and guess what? It got picked up for a limited miniseries that's airing this October, that's right, in 2019. At one point it was even announced that a live-action feature film was going to hit the silver screen. Unfortunately, they've since removed it from the schedule, but I'm hoping, crossing my fingers, that it comes back at some point because I love Are You Afraid of the Dark. I legitimately remember being 2 years old watching this show in my family's living room. The series revolves around a group of friends who call themselves the Midnight Society. They're this club that meet at night in a forest around a bonfire, and they tell scary stories which we as viewers get to see played out on our screens. The first generation Midnight Society crew had very distinct personalities. They had specific trends in their storytelling that really reflected their characters. For instance, Gary, who was sort of like the leader of the Midnight Society, it turned out that it was kind of a generational thing. His own grandfather had started the Midnight Society back in the day, and he had a passion for magic, especially kind of like Houdini types of stories, and his tales usually involved the recurring character of Sardo and featured characters buying like cursed or enchanted items from his shop. Betty Ann loved bizarre and twisted stories with alien or supernatural forces that kind of had like Twilight Zone sort of endings and hinted that like the danger isn't really over. Kiki was a tomboy who often told stories about the dangers of carelessness or the past repeating itself. Frank's stories often involved the villain Dr. Vink. Tucker, who was Gary's obnoxious younger brother, often told stories about like family relationships and characters who accidentally unleashed evil. And then later on in the revival, he's the only character that returns, and he ends up kind of taking up the mantle as the leader of the Midnight Society for his brother. Sam is a shy girl with a crush on Gary, and a lot of her stories tend to be about love. There's Kristen, who loves ghost stories and fairy tales, and David, who has a crush on Kristen and kind of tells a lot of stories about the evils of the past or darkness inside of everyday people. And then in the second generation that was led by Tucker, we meet Quinn, whose stories are often about characters coming face to face with a villain, or Vange, whose stories are about wanting something so badly that it causes a character to go down the wrong path. There's Andy, who has stories that are often inspired by his own experiences or about how characters' dark sides can unleash evil, and Megan, who often told tales that involved romance. Each story started out with the iconic line, submitted for the approval of the Midnight Society, which was actually a nod to the Twilight Zone, which was a show that really inspired the Are You Afraid of the Dark creators, DJ McHale and Ned Kendall. McHale actually struggled getting into writing for TV after graduating from college, but magic happened when he started working with his producing partner, Kendall. They worked on kids' content together until they eventually developed their own show, which was a much tamer version of Are You Afraid of the Dark called Scary Tales. After workshopping it in different ways, they ended up with the idea of kids sitting around a campfire telling scary stories, but at first Nickelodeon wasn't on board with this idea. But a few years later, when a new executive, Jay Mullaney, came on board, he dusted off the old pitch and greenlit what we now know as Are You Afraid of the Dark. And what's really interesting here is that the name Are You Afraid of the Dark was actually inspired by Dr. Seuss's book, What Was I Scared Of? McHale read that book and thought, you know, I'm scared of clowns, I'm scared of the dark, and there he had the title. Are You Afraid of the Dark was born. And they tackle tons of themes, from demons to ghosts to haunted houses, magic, curses, aliens, and more. Some stories were based on urban legends, fairy tales, short stories, or even events going on in the storyteller's life. And you know that sand or, midnight dust that the members of the Midnight Society threw into the campfire? It was actually non-dairy creamer. Apparently it burned really well because it was petroleum based. I would say my favorite stories had to do with people getting what they wanted but for a price, like in the episode The Tale of the Vacant Lot, or the ones that had kind of like the darker twist endings where you were like, oh man, the story's not really over. And then something else that's really fun when you're looking back at Are You Afraid of the Dark is just all of the young actors who were on that show that ended up, having pretty big careers, like Melissa Joan Hart, Tia and Tamara Mowry, Ryan Gosling, Sterling, Neve Campbell, Will Friedle. Like, there were so many amazing people that had episodes where they were featured in Are You Afraid of the Dark. Now, lucky for us, as I said, Are You Afraid of the Dark is getting a limited revival. There are gonna be 3 episodes across 3 weeks, 1 hour each, telling the story of the Carnival of Doom, which honestly sounds like a Goosebumps episode. It seems like this new story will follow a girl who just moved to town and is trying to join the Midnight Society. She tells the story of the Carnival of Doom, and then the carnival ends up coming to their actual town, and it turns out it's real. Supposedly there are some references that pay homage to the original series, and they got some clowns in there, which already calls to mind Zeebo the Clown, who was horrifying in the original. I'm hoping that they really go there with the story and kind of give us the type of horror that we had when I was a kid, which was, you know, Are You Afraid of the Dark? Yeah, it's a kid's horror anthology, but it was really scary. Do you guys remember the episode, The Tale of the Dark Music? Even as an adult, I was like, uh-oh, I gotta look under the bed, make sure that there's nothing under there, nothing's gonna come and attack me, grab me, because that was a scary episode. When it comes to the new Midnight Society, we've got a whole new cast, including Sam Ash Arnold as Gavin, Mia Check as Akiko, Tamara Smart as Louise, Jeremy Ray Taylor, who you might know from It fame, as Graham, and Leanna Ray as Rachel, alongside Rafael Casal as the Carnival of Doom's ringmaster, Mr. Top Hat. And all of the characters have last names that pay homage to famous horror movie icons. I'm really excited for this Are You Afraid of the Dark miniseries, and I'm crossing my fingers that we eventually get that live action feature film in the future. If you like this video, you can check out more right over here, and I have tons more spooky ones coming up soon. Alright, see ya.